Hello, today I am building a haunted castle, which ends up using a lot of rounded wall pieces, which I don't like using, and I had kind of sworn that I wouldn't really use them ever again, and I would do everything to avoid it. But as you could see right away, I'm using rounded wall pieces because I had a reference picture, and I think that's what ends up causing it. Is I'll find a reference picture and like in order to make it look sort of similar to what I want it to look based on it, I have to use rounded walls. And I'm kind of getting better at like learning to connect them to other areas of the house. Like right there, I used regular walls to connect the walls where normally I struggle and I end up giving up because I can't connect them. And so whenever I usually do rounded walls in a build, it's like not even connected to the inside of the house because I can't get it to work right. So, but now I'm a little bit better at it. But just because I'm a little bit better at it doesn't mean that they work correctly. So there's still a lot of like bugs with them, which like it's like you can build with it and it's just like a little bit more of an annoyance, especially like I notice now you can't add uh ladders inside, and I don't know why. I'm not sure if it's because it's the smallest room size, but I feel like I've done it before, but I can't remember. But I can't put ladders in here, so my whole plan was to have ladders going up into these towers, and that was not possible. So I end up like putting ladders, like not ladders. Well, yeah, I do end up putting ladders outside to connect up there, but while I was building this, doing the interior is a nightmare because you have to like zoom in really close to put the items down inside of the rounded rooms. And like this interior took me the longest an interior ever has because I had to take so many breaks and I like didn't go back to it for like a day and stuff because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to fight with this. So I ended up doing other builds while I was pushing this one off. And then this one, I was like, okay, Megan, no more. You can't use rounded walls in a base of a house. I'll still do like the towers, but the base of the house, don't do it. And then guess what I did? My next video also uses a large rounded wall for the base, but I'm gonna put a picture up of the reference picture and then I'll like describe what I was inspired by with it. So give me a second. I'm not streaming, you don't need to know that. Okay, so this is my reference picture. I found it on Pinterest and it is a fish aquarium piece. I get recommended these sorts of like what do you call them? Decorative houses. And I guess it makes sense because I save every single one because I love them more than like real life house pictures. But you could see that the base is supposed to have a bunch of rocks, and originally I was gonna try that, but I didn't want to have to like mess around with it, and I knew it would take a really long time, and I just wanted to start building something and not have to put too much like brain power into figuring out like a really huge part of the build in that like sitting. I just wanted to build something and I still liked the shape of the build, so most of the shape is there. Like there's the two pitched roofs and there's rounded walls where there has to be rounded walls, unfortunately. But it's okay to build with. The only problem is that there's like a invisible like square or block that kind of blocks you from going into the room from above. So you have to like constantly move the camera, which is not how I often build. So I was also nervous about the like video being hard to watch because I have to like change the camera angles so much, but I think it should be okay. But because there's supposed to be rocks on this build, I decided to put just like my basic base game rock around a like pond. It's kind of like a moat, I guess. But yeah, I use a lot of like almost like dying landscaping. I think I set this in spring. I add more afterwards, so like what you see me placing, I end up adding some more stuff. I add some like island living flowers, which I don't use very often because they're so bright, but in spring they look perfect and they blend in really well with the flowers that I used. And there I was trying something different by mixing different fences on the back. I'm not completely convinced that it works, but I told myself it works, so I guess it works. I had to edit that anyway after because I need to create a thing that leads up to those two towers over there because I didn't want all of the towers to be empty space, which is what it was going to end up being because I couldn't put a ladder up. But like there's so many towers that I was just like, no, you need to like make a way to get up there. And there isn't really anything interesting in the towers. I just did some like skill building stuff. So if you download it to play in, there's like a piano, a chess table, and a easel. But also the same problem with building with rounded walls applies when you're doing gameplay too, which is what I noticed when I was making the intro, that like you it's hard to click on objects, so you have to zoom in really close, which I guess it's worth it for the aesthetic of the build. I think it was a really important part of the build. So yeah, here it is. I'm deciding to actually make them usable, so I just bring out that like deck a little bit so that you can climb up there. I use the high school years ladder because it's my favorite one, and when you place it against walls it naturally puts ivy on it, which I notice now I didn't really put ivy on this build, which is like a huge thing for me because I overdo ivy in every single build. But the floor plan I was also terrified of, so I ended up like, because the build looked a little scary to me, so I wanted to have like twins in this house where like with like scary dolls, because I do that in all of my builds. But that's what I like figured. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have two girls in this house and I'll make it scary. And so I placed the bedroom, and then I placed like the main bedroom, and there's not much space in this. I struggled with this floor plan a lot. I I guess the hallway might be a little bit too big. I've That's usually the problem with when I like struggle with the floor plan. It's normally because I made the hallway weird, and it's like I could only fix it by redoing the entire like downstairs, and I was considering it. I struggled mostly with the living room area, which is like leading through those columns back there. And at that point, I was like, do I restart the entire interior? And then I was thinking about how annoying it is to fight with the rounded rooms, so I was like, no. You can see some of the rounded, like the problem with them. You could see like things floating in the air above them. That's what's kind of blocking you from like using them in like an easier way. So sometimes like you try to put a wallpaper down and it won't and so you have to like zoom in. There's a lot of workarounds around it. It's like supposed to be for me a once every so often type of thing where I use a rounded wall and to like actually put furniture in, but it was twice. But next week's video, it's very small and I only use one rounded room, so it ends up okay. And here's the bathroom, which I think might be my favorite part of this entire build. It's the first thing I did, which I notice is the first like room I clutter and decorate is always my favorite because I have all of this like inspired energy to make it look really nice, and then it starts to fizzle out the more I build. So realistically, I should probably not do interiors all in one go like I normally do. That's usually how I build, is like I'll do the entire exterior and it takes me about like an hour, and then I'll do the entire interior, which takes me way longer because I put so much stuff in it. But yeah, I should definitely split it up so that I don't use like all of my energy on like a couple of rooms. But even this build, I did break it up because I was struggling so much, and the other rooms just aren't as full as they normally would be because of the rounded walls. But it's strange because the bathroom has a rounded wall in it, but it didn't become much of a problem, maybe because like I put the bathtub over there, so the bathtub kind of like I didn't need to put anything around it. But yeah, this is my favorite room of the house. I like how it's lit. I like the colors that I used in it. I put a lot of like wall holes and chipped paint and stuff, which I guess doesn't make sense in this sort of brick, but I like it. I think it looks good. I've never really used that brick before too. I think it came with the uh it was that kitchen, the country kitchen kit. I've never used that, and I used it on the outside of the build. So I decided like it would just be easier for me to do most of the interior the same wall. It was originally going to be all stone with stone floor and like the stone walls, but I realized I didn't like that because I knew that like the more I decorate it, the harder it's going to be. So I put like wooden floors throughout most of it. And here's the living room that I struggled with a lot, and there's not a lot of space in this house, so there's not like this is I think the biggest room besides the bedroom. And I end up splitting it up because I couldn't figure out where to place a couch, and I think that was my biggest struggle because there's that giant arch that I don't want to block off with a couch. But then there's like a whole section of the room that's like on like the back side of it. And so I didn't know what to place anything. So like you see there's a computer desk there that changes. I have to get some more windows because I never place enough windows, and I always have to change it once I go in, which is fine. Like, I think that's ideal for me. But yeah, I even tried to put curtains because I thought, okay, maybe it'll make it easier. If, like, there's a curtain there, maybe I could block the path a little bit, but I didn't like that. Normally, with that painting, what I was trying to do was use, like, a crack in the wall to make it look like the painting is damaged, because I've done that before with, like, it was a Halloween collab, like, last October, and I used like two little like wall holes to create like to put it over where the eyes would be on the painting, which would scare me so bad in real life. Like I make these scary looking builds and then I'd be like terrified of them in real life, but I couldn't do the like trick with the painting because there was that rounded wall piece in the way and it kept snapping to that, and I didn't want to have to move. Like normally when I do that I delete the walls and then I put the walls back, but I wasn't going to delete a rounded wall and put it back because odds are it would not come out like the way that it currently looks. So I made a little room off to the side, which ends up being just like a little writing room. I put a dollhouse in there, and that's pretty much all that I did with that. Like I show it. So, but this is the dining room. I kept it very simple. There's not a lot of space in the dining room, unfortunately. I always do that. I always want to add like a bar and stuff to the dining rooms, but I couldn't because it's so tiny. So I got a huge table and I end up just like putting candles on it and stuff. So here is where I realized that I want to change out all of the lights and stuff, I guess soon. But here is the writing room. I do almost the same exact vibe. I just take a bunch of wall cracks, I put it everywhere. I love cluttering desks. I think it's one of my favorite things to do. It becomes a little bit easier now that I like actually get myself to move the desk over instead of like fighting with it and trying to use tool to place items. I really want to download the like red shelf mod again because that would be really really useful. Because right, like after this I streamed the interior rebuild because this interior burnt me out. And then I had another build that I did. I was like, oh, I need to do the interior because I want to take like pictures of it. So I streamed it so that I'd have company while I was building, and it worked out. But I also was using one of the like home no, that's Happy Home Designer is Animal Crossing. Whichever stuff pack the like interior design career came with, I used one of those square shelves to act as the red shelf mod, but you can't add as many objects on there, so I'm definitely going to download it so that I can use it. But the problem is that I have a lot of custom content in my game that I have never used. I downloaded a bunch like a few months ago because I was convinced that I was going to do that, and I didn't. But I still really want to. I have a lot of medieval looking CC that I want to try out and use eventually. But this kitchen was, I think, the hardest part of the house. I keep saying that, but now I'm realizing the kitchen was genuinely the hardest because I don't know why I thought to pick the like really rounded piece as a kitchen, because I can't put cabinets over on the rounded wall, so I had to like be restricted to one little wall, which I almost made the same mistake in my next build video. And so I kept telling myself, Megan, whatever you do, don't put the counters in that rounded room, you're gonna regret it. And so I didn't. I made it a bedroom because bedrooms are the easiest thing. But I think that this little writing room is the most cluttered room of the house besides the bathroom. So that's because, again, it's just normal walls and stuff. I'm still struggling to find placement. I do like how the bookcases turned out over there. I think it used up the space really well because it's such a weird shaped room. It was really hard to work with. I do end up putting the couch in, which is what I really want it to do. I still feel like it's strange and it cuts the room off, but that's just how it has to be. So if you notice, I have two of the blonde dolls. Those are supposed to represent the like two like child beds in the house that like maybe they're not actually children living in the house anymore. But I didn't end up doing that. I focused more on like the mom, who I used a base sim that I had used for the same Halloween collab with that painting, because I saw that painting, so I was like, oh, I made that sim, and so I could bring her into this build. And so I decided to just use that, mostly because the kids went to school. So in that like story, I had the mom and the two kids, and they were all like vampires. And so that was like the big twist of that like collab build. It doesn't matter. But this bedroom, I do like the bedroom. I don't think it needed any clutter. I love using the vampire like holes in the walls because it fills up a wall without having to use wall art, which is something I struggle with a lot with my pack limited builds. When I don't have vampires, I struggle with doing the walls like all the time because I don't really know how to decorate with wall art very well. I normally do one big wall of wall art and then not again. So I do the same sort of thing in here. I do like a wall of art in the kids' bedroom, and then I don't think any of the other ones do. The wallpaper that I use throughout, I feel like it doesn't really, like, I'd have to size down paintings to fit into those little rectangles anyway, so it didn't matter that much. But yeah, a nice dimly lit corner, which scares me too. I noticed that there's a lot of swatches on that, the little toy, I think, that comes in the vending machines with Snowy Escape. And I used a gnome one because I thought it was the cutest one for here. I, like, just... I tried to use those wall, like, the werewolf moon wall thing. I'm not convinced it looks good, but I left it anyway. I noticed that the vampire holes that I put, when I put them over those windows, they just go on the window panes. Are that what they are called? Maybe. But I noticed that they don't go on the actual glass, which I thought was really cool. But I tried to do it again with another window, and it did go on the glass. Wait, I see it literally did go on the glass. Whatever. But yeah, this is the one, wall of art. I used one of the spooky stuff pack windows because not windows paintings, because it changes and you can't size those down because like since they change, it'll kind of like, it looks strange, which I've learned when I was touring my like shell challenge entries over like the fall. So I remember to not size them down, even though I kind of wanted to. It ended up being okay. Like, I love that collection of art together. It makes no sense at all. But the frames work really well together, so I liked that a lot. Yeah, I didn't put so much into this room. I think that if it was just a rectangle, I probably would have put like a dresser with a bunch of toys and clutter on top, but I couldn't. I maybe could have squeezed it in somewhere, but I originally wanted to put a dollhouse in that room, but there isn't a lot of space. It looked like a huge room until I started decorating it. I think the layout, I could have probably done a much better layout for it. And this bathroom, I pretty sure I did almost nothing with it. I already did one bathroom. I'm not gonna take pictures of two bathrooms, so I just put a rug on the floor. This is when I realized that I could do, like, I could lock the camera to a certain area in build mode, which I didn't realize. Because, like, if you press control and a number, you can set a like camera angle, and that's how I do like my intro videos and like outro videos type thing. So I was just like, oh, that could have been really useful if I had done that with the other rooms, because I could have just had the perfect angle, and then I wouldn't had to have like kept trying to like fight the camera a bunch, and I could have just like had it set perfectly. But all that's really left is, I believe, the kitchen, which I love clutter in kitchens. I did do a little bit of clutter in here. I spent a long time trying to get the layout right. I really like how that sink matches that cabinet really well. I didn't expect it to, but it goes like almost like, it looks like it comes in that set pretty much. I had to cut out me putting the cabinets because it was a nightmare. But yeah, all I do is put some clutter around on the counters. I didn't even bother with shelves on the walls, which is what I normally like to do because it was difficult. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the entire video. All I end up doing is putting some stuff in the towers and whatnot. So yeah, thank you for watching. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter and sometimes Twitch. So bye.